All right. Good morning, everyone. The time is 9 o'clock, and I call to order the July 27th, 2021 meeting of the Contractors State License Board. I'm Susan Granzella, CSLB's board chair. Board members, we will be using cameras during the meeting. To mitigate any potential bandwidth issues, we ask that you turn off your video camera when you're not speaking. When you would like to comment during the meeting, select your raise your hand icon in the WebEx application and turn on your camera. I will call on board members to speak. When called upon, please unmute yourself, and then when finished, return to mute and turn off your camera. Shelley Jones is our host and moderator today. Also joining us is Registrar Dave Fote, Chief Deputy Registrar Tanya Corcoran, CSLB staff, Board Legal Counsel Jason Hurtado, and Executive Office Support Kayla Bosley. Kayla, please confirm board member attendance and call the roll.
Susan Granzella.
Here.
Kevin Albanese.
Here.
Frank Altamura.
Here.
Augie Beltran.
Here.
Rodney Cobos.
Here.
David De La Torre.
Here.
Miguel Galarza.
Here.
Donald Garatano.
Here.
Diana Love.
Here.
Michael Mark.
Here.
James Rain.
Here.
Johnny Simpson.
Here.
Nancy Springer.
Here.
And Mary Tykert. Not here.
At this time, I'd like to ask you to please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to stand up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
So we are moving on to agenda item B, public comment session for items not on the agenda and future agenda item requests. Note that individuals may appear before the board to discuss items not on the agenda. However, the CSLB's board can neither discuss nor take official action on these items at the time. So on to the board values public input as part of our consumer protection mission. To allow us enough time to conduct our full schedule of business today, I'm limiting the public to 3 minutes apiece. This may depend on how many people want to speak. However, we've already told stakeholders they will have 3 minutes on public agenda items for the future. If your comments don't involve an item on today's agenda, this would be the time where you can make them. If you have comments on one of our agenda items, we encourage you to wait until we get to that item. We will give you an opportunity to make your comments at that time. We also ask that your public comment relate to the agenda item currently before the board. There are a few other rules that apply. First, California law prohibits board members from discussing any matter brought up during public comment, and board members are not allowed to act on any item not on today's agenda. Second, if you want the board to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you can ask us to consider placing that issue on the agenda for a future meeting. Finally, if you have an application, complaint, disciplinary charges pending before the board, we ask that you not discuss the details of your case or pending complaint. That's because the board members may be the judges, and by law, we are not permitted to receive evidence or information that is not part of an administrative record on the case. Members of the public, if you are with us on WebEx, you would like to make a comment, use the chat feature to send the host a note that you would like to offer a public comment. If you are joining us on the phone and would like to make a public comment, press *9. We will take any WebEx comments first, followed by telephone comments. We will use the same system throughout the meeting for public comment during each agenda item. You will find instructions on how to make public comments on the agenda for this meeting posted on our CSLB website. So now ask for comment. Board members, please turn on your camera and raise your hand if you have an agenda item that you would like placed on a future meeting agenda.
And this is the moderator. Just as a reminder, you can locate your raise hand icon at the bottom of your participant panel list. It should be an icon of a small hand at the very bottom of that panel.
There are no comments, Shelley? Any? I don't see any, seeing no comments. And Shelley, can you confirm that?
Sorry, I was still muted. Member Kobos had asked where the hand raise icon was. He was trying to find it. I don't know if he was wanting to comment or if he just wanted to make sure he knew where it was.
I found it. Thank you.
Okay. And then we do have a few requests for comments from the public.
That is the next item here. So Shelley, please check to see if there are any members of the public who wish to address the board or offer a possible agenda item for a future meeting. Thank you, Shelley.
Right. You're welcome.
Bring those up.
Our first comment comes from Nick Vita. And Nick, your line is unmuted.
Hi, this is Nick Vita. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. My name is Nick Vita with R&D Electric. We're headquartered in Sacramento and install battery energy storage and solar throughout California. According to our experience and the UCB report, robust safety measures that require significant technical capacity and knowledge are critical to mitigating the risks of BESS systems. Safety code revision applicable to BESS have implemented even more rigorous requirements to protect the public and emergency responders. These changes include relatively low kilowatt-hour thresholds for code coverage, significantly more safety provisions, and the requirement that the design and installation of BESS be performed by qualified persons, a definition that points unambiguously to the need for electrical training. We urge the board to vote expeditiously at the meeting to exclude C46 licenses from the installation and maintenance of battery energy storage. The C46 license has been leveraged to get a lower cost of labor for lower cost contractors. Thank you.
All right, and our next comment comes from Andrew Rogers.
Point of order, Chairwoman. This is Augie.
Yes.
Maybe we should remind the public that if they're going to comment on the BESS, that they need to wait for agenda item C instead of killing it all under public comment, which should be reserved for anything not on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Board Counsel 2. I agree with Board Member Beltran's statement.
All right, our next comment comes from Andrew Rogers. Andrew, your line is open, and just as a reminder, comments are limited to 3 minutes today. Your line is open.
Thank you. Thank you. I will actually wait till agenda item B. I noted that in my chat message that the comment was referent to the BES system. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment comes from Clay Malden. Clay, your line is open. You will have 3 minutes. Clay, can you hear us? All right. Clay, it appears we cannot hear you. I'm not sure if you can hear us. If you'd like, I do have the Q&A feature open and the chat feature open. You could type your comment into there, as it seems we're having some audio issues.
And I would like to remind those who are waiting that this is for future agenda items only. And if it is regarding BESS or other subjects that are related to agenda item C, to please wait until that session starts. Thank you.
All right, so I'm looking here. A lot of people have put in more comments about which one they're trying to comment on. So let me work through them for a moment. Okay, Karen Prescott. Your line is open.
Yes, I think I was going to comment on item B.
That's what
So
we're
do you
on,
want-
is item B.
Oh, we're on now? Okay. Well, good morning then. My name is Karen Prescott, and I represent contractors in the greater San Diego area who install a significant share of solar systems and battery energy storage.
With
including-
respect, Speaker, this is Board Member Beltran. I think people are confused. We're going to take all this testimony under item C.
Item C. Okay, I
Yes,
put that in my
currently-
question.
Yeah.
BESS is either item B or C, and I will speak on either one. So you want to bump me to C? I'm perfectly
Yeah,
happy to do
we
so.
could. With respect, Chair, I think we should, so if you want to talk about BESS, that is item C.
Okay.
Right now, we're on agenda item B, which is just public comment about things in general. And we want everyone's comments to count. So if you want to talk about BESS and you want your comment to count, I would wait till we get to item C. And believe me, everyone will have an opportunity to speak under item C.
Put me back in the mix for item C then.
Thank you. I wasn't just talking to you. I'm kind of talking to every 200 people on the attendees. Thank you.
All right, and it does look like everybody's posting more chats indicating that they are looking to speak on item C. So let me check our Q&A. Those are all item C as well, and double check for hand raises. I do have a hand raise from Wen Lu. Your line is open.
Oh, yeah, I made the comment. This is for items. I'll speak on behalf of item C later on.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like that's it for item B.
Thank you, Board Member Beltran, for clarifying that in this process. Well, we are now, the next item is agenda item C. And we are moving on to agenda item C, the presentation from UC Berkeley on the battery energy storage system study. Before the presentation, I would like to provide a summary of the board's actions to date. In 2018, the board began looking at the proper classifications to install battery energy storage systems. Since 2018, several public meetings have been held and the board directed staff to prepare a report. In March 2019, the board reviewed the CSLB staff report on battery energy storage systems and directed staff to begin to develop regulations to present to the board that would prohibit or restrict certain classifications from performing the installation of battery energy storage systems. The board further directed that this matter be assigned to the legislative committee. On August 6, 2019, the legislative committee held a meeting and invited 3 industry experts to present on the appropriate classifications to install battery energy storage systems. Several hours of testimony was heard. On November 7th, 2019, the legislative committee met again and recommended that the board consider retaining an outside consultant to further study the issue before pursuing regulatory rulemaking. At the December 12th, 2019 board meeting, the board agreed with the legislative committee recommendation to hire an outside consultant. Staff worked with DCA and the Department of General Services to select a qualified consultant to review and make recommendations regarding the appropriate classifications to install battery energy storage systems. December 2020, CSLB entered into contract with the UC Berkeley group to serve as the consultant. So at this time,
You
I
want
will
to try and capture more of what they're saying because
Okay.
they're
Okay, at this time, I will turn it over to Board Member Augie Beltran to lead the discussion on this matter. Augie Beltran was chair of the 2019 Legislative Committee meetings and continues to chair the Legislative Committee this year. Augie, Chair Member Augie Beltran.
Thank you, Board Chair. You can find the staff introduction to the UC Berkeley study followed by the study itself beginning on page 7 of your board packet. The staff introduction provides possible options for the board to consider after the UC Berkeley presentation. The board is not bound to select the options provided in the packet by staff. As indicated by option 3 on page 7, board members can make any motion they deem appropriate. As Board Chair Granzella indicated, this issue has been before the board at least 4 years and represents years of hard work by staff. It's important to note that the consultant's contract is complete with the presentation of their study today. There are no plans for the study to be modified or for the consultant to perform more research. The study is being presented in response to the board's December 2019 recommendation that a third-party consultant prepare a research study to assist the board with making a determination about the appropriate classification to install battery energy storage systems. That is what we are here to do today. Now, I'd like to ask Register Foat to provide the board background on the selection of the consultant. Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Ledge Chair Augie Beltran, for providing me the opportunity to provide a little more detailed background as to the selection of UC Berkeley. The Department of Consumer Affairs Business Services Office, hereafter I'll refer to that as DCA BSO, has delegated authority from the Department of General Services to enter into service contracts on behalf of the Contractors Board. The method chosen to secure this consultant was the request for proposal, or we call it the RFP process. Through this method, the contract was awarded to the bidder with the highest total points based on the selection criteria, rating scales, and guidelines identified in the RFP. The steps in the process of selecting the consultant followed requirements set forth by the state contracting rules and were conducted by the Department of Consumer Affairs staff, specifically the BSO, alongside the CSLB evaluation team. Between August and September of 2020, the CSLB and DCA BSO engaged in a comprehensive 3-phase evaluation process. The first phase of the evaluation process included a committee made up of CSLB selected representatives. They formed the evaluation committee. The CSLB evaluation committee consisted of Chief Deputy Registrar Tanya Corcoran, our Chief of Administration Mike Beliza, and me. The evaluation committee evaluated each written proposal and through consensus arrived at a single score for each of the evaluation criteria. The second phase was an oral interview. This process allowed each bidder to provide an oral presentation via teleconference to the evaluation committee. The evaluation committee evaluated the oral interviews and through consensus arrived at a single score for each of the evaluation criteria. Lastly, proposals receiving an overall score of 35 or more from the first phase evaluation and an overall oral interview score of 30 or more from the second phase evaluation were granted a cost component score based upon the hourly rate identified in their proposal. The cost component score was determined by the DCA BSO. The overall technical score of the first phase evaluation, the overall interview score of the second phase evaluation, and the cost component score were added together by DCA to determine an accumulated score for each bidder. Once all 3 phases were completed, a notice of intent to award the contract to UC Berkeley was publicly posted. It was early December, allowing the 4 unsuccessful bidders to protest the awarding of the contract to UC Berkeley. No protests were received by the Department of General Services from the four unsuccessful bidders. However, prior to the contract being executed with UC Berkeley, I did receive a written objection directly from the California Solar and Storage Association on or about December 1st, 2020. However, CalSA was not a bidder, and protests to awarded contracts must be filed with DGS. CalSA objected that UC Berkeley had an alleged bias towards the IBW and organized labor. I reviewed CalSA's objection with DCA, and determination was the evidence presented by CalSA did not support disqualifying UC Berkeley. CalSA was notified of that determination via a December 14, 2020 letter from me. Consequently, the consulting contract with UC Berkeley was executed by the Department of General Services on December 31st, 2020. And as Ledge Chair Augie Beltran stated, the contract does conclude with their presentation today. I just want to clarify something. I know the date as far as when the notice of intent to award was posted, but I believe it was mid-November, just to clarify that. So that would conclude my background on how we selected UC Berkeley as the consultant for the battery energy storage system study.
Thank you, David. Before we turn it over to the presenters, I'd like to walk everyone through what to expect after the study authors give their presentation. After the presentation, I will ask for board member comments. Then I will ask if any board member wants to make a motion. We will then open it up for a final board member comment based on that motion, followed by public comment based on that motion. As Chair Granzella stated, public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. So on my screen, I see 126 people wanting to speak. At 3 minutes apiece, that's 6.5 hours. It's not necessary for any member of the public to repeat statements or views of a previous speaker. For today's agenda item, it's sufficient to state that you agree with the prior speaker's comments or statements, and the board will consider that as a full adoption of the previous speaker's position. And note your comment for the record. Once again, everyone's got the ability to speak, but if everyone does speak their 3 minutes, it's 6.5 hours. After all comments are heard, I will call for a vote. Please note that neither the board nor the consultants will respond to direct questions from members of the public. However, we do look forward to hearing the public's input before the vote is called. I will now turn it over to Dr. Carol Zabin and her team to present their study to the board. UC Berkeley team, you got it. It's all yours.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Carol Zabin, and I'm director of the Green Economy Program. We actually taped our presentation because one of my colleagues could not be here and the other is only here by phone. So I'm going to turn it actually back over to CSLB to start the recording. I am here and Bethany Jones is here by phone. Don Holmstrom just absolutely couldn't make it on this particular date. But we are here to hear the board comments and if appropriate, answer questions from the board. So I'm turning it back over to the technical staff who will start the recording right now. So thank you very much. We were really honored to be able to do this work and use our research skills, and we really hope it's useful to you all.
Thank you. We're starting the video now. Thank you.
And sorry for the interruption. This is the moderator. If I could ask for those members of the public who are submitting requests to comment on this item, if you've submitted one request, please do not continue to submit multiple requests. As it was mentioned, there are well over 100 requests for comment, and trying to sort through them and figure out who's commented or not is going to be quite the challenge if you've submitted 3 and 4 requests. So please, one request, please be patient. We will get to you. Thank you.
All right, staff, go ahead and hit the presentation button, please.
Good morning. And thank you so much for this opportunity to present the results from our report that evaluates alternative contractor license requirements for battery energy storage systems, otherwise known as BESS. My name is Carol Zabin, and I'm director of the Green Economy Program at UC Berkeley. I'm here with my research partners, Bethany Jones, principal of Inclusive Economics, and Donald Holmstrom, retired from many years with the United States Chemical Safety Board. We are honored to be able to use our research skills to be of use to the Contractor State Licensing Board as it makes an important decision about the future of BESS. Next slide. So, as you all know, we were asked to do an independent review that analyzes the following question. Should C46 contractors be permitted to install solar paired BESS? And if so, under what specific conditions? And so the CSLB staff asked us to review the following options. Option 1, preclude the C46 solar classification from installing BESS. Options 2 and 3, permit the C46 contractors to install BESS on specified residential units that do not require electric system upgrades, and in the case of option 2, with size restrictions, in the case of option 3, with requiring plans approved by an electrical engineer. And option 4 is make no change to the existing interpretation of the C46 classification, which allows C46 to install solar PV with BESS. Next slide. So our research approach was to first carry out a profile of the contractors involved in BESS installations in California, and we used administrative data from both the Self-Generation Incentive Program and the Interconnection data set, and matched this installation data, project data, against CSLB license data to document the licenses held by contractors who have been involved in BESS installation. And we did this by various subcategories and slicing and dicing it in different ways, count, capacity, customer class, etc., which we'll go into in detail. We also conducted an evaluation of the risks and hazards associated with BESS, the qualifications needed for safe installation, and really looked at the issues surrounding how to mitigate risk in BESS using code documents, incident reports, interviews, and a variety, really wide variety of other sources of information on risks and hazards. And finally, we did an evaluation of the economic implications of alternative licensing scenarios, looking at availability of contractors and workers, installation costs, the transition costs if CSLB were to change current policy, and the economic co-benefits, using, again, a variety of data sources from the SGIP data to data from the National Renewable Energy Lab and the labor market data from the EDD and the Department of Industrial Relations. Next slide. So 2 research results that sort of inform the analysis and, of course, the recommendations. Number 1, the key relevant difference for this problem between C46 and C10 contractors is that electricians employed by C10 contractors must be certified, while workers doing electrical work for C46 contractors are not required to have that certification. So that's number 1. And it's important to note that if a contractor has both a C10 and a C46 license, they are required to use certified electricians. So they are not exempt from that certification. The only exempt is the C46 without the C10 or other permissible licenses. And second, the current profile of BESS installers shows very minor participation of these contractors who hold only the C46 license without a C10 or the general contractor or engineering licenses. And you know, depending on how you slice and dice it, this is generally less than 5% of the total. And just to preview our results, we do recommend precluding the C46 from BESS, and we say that with a safety analysis that really shows significant risk and the importance of using qualified personnel. We show that there is not a concern about that there's no reason to have a concern about the availability of contractors and workers who hold a C10 license and are certified electricians. We show very comparable costs between the various contractor license holders, and we also show some co-benefits to using, to supporting the certification for electricians in BESS. Next slide. So I'm going to turn it over to our colleague, Don Holmstrom, to talk about the safety.
Thank you, Carol. Now we're going to review our report's discussion of battery energy storage systems, hazards, and risks. Then we'll apply that safety analysis to the CSLB contract classifications and reach conclusions as to the qualifications of the contractors and their workforces for safe and effective installation of battery energy storage systems, or BESS. Next. This report examines the appropriate jurisdiction of C46 solar contractor and C10 electrical contractor classifications for ensuring the safe installation of BESS. Installation can include construction, installation, modification, maintenance, or repair. The report evaluates safety issues that are relevant to our assessment of which specialty contractor classifications are appropriate to perform battery energy storage systems work. It is worth noting here that the CSLB's mission statement and enabling statute emphasizes the importance of the role of public safety to the activities and requirements of the CSLB. California Business and Professional Code emphasizes that, quote, protection of the public shall be the highest priority for the contractor state license board, unquote, in exercising its functions. Included in the safety analysis is a review of stakeholder positions, chemistry and technology, available incident data, codes and standards, research, and select best industry documentation, such as safety data sheets, installation manuals, and emergency response guidance. In order to define the scope of our review, it was important to identify the predominant installed BESS technology. Lithium ion is the predominant BESS technology for residential, commercial, and grid utility applications in the United States, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Lithium-ion batteries accounted for 90% of the large-scale BESS deployment in the U.S. A variety of lithium-ion battery chemistries have emerged. Lithium manganese cobalt oxide, NMC, is the leading BESS chemistry, followed by the increasing deployment of lithium iron phosphide, LFP. In the California residential storage market, lithium-ion batteries dominate the market. Lithium manganese cobalt oxide batteries from Tesla and LG account for 97% of the California residential installations based on SCIP data. Next slide. While the lithium-ion battery technology has become the nation's preferred technology due to its high energy density, efficiency in retaining energy from recharge to discharge, relatively longer life, and lower cost, lithium-ion BESS hazards are inherent, include a flammable electrolyte, high electrical energy density, and the potential for exothermic chemical reactions. Hazard impacts can include fire and explosion, thermal runaway, arc flash, electric shock, stranded energy, deep-seated fires that can reignite, and toxic gas release. Of the lithium-ion battery hazards, thermal runaway is the most significant. Thermal runaway is characterized as an uncontrolled exothermic chemical reaction that results in a rapid release of thermal energy from a battery cell at a higher rate than it can remove. This overheating can spread to other battery cells, releasing flammable and toxic gas leading to fire, or if allowed to build up, can result in explosion. Lithium-ion battery events can trigger thermal runaway and include electrical, mechanical, environmental, and thermal abuse. Electrical abuse failure mechanisms include overcharge, overdischarge, and internal short circuit. Electrical abuse failure mechanisms include a component failure, such as problems with the battery management system, a short circuit, or loose electrical connections. The report noted that were several potential failure mechanisms addressed in sources such as incident data, relevant codes and standards, and manufacturer literature that stress the importance of safe installation to avoid hazards such as arc flash and thermal runaway. In fact, the NFPA has issued a standard, NFPA 855/2020, specifically addressing safe energy storage system installation. Mechanical abuse examples are penetration, crushing, and drops from sources such as tools, equipment, rough handling, or vehicle impact. Environmental impacts include extreme heat, flooding, seismic events. Thermal abuse can result from a variety of external heat sources, including electrical events such as arc flash in the proximity of the lithium-ion battery. Next slide. The hazards associated with battery energy storage system installations can include deaths and injuries to workers, emergency responders, occupants of buildings and facilities. Serious incidents have occurred in all phases of the BESS life cycle, including construction, installation, and operation. Most significant incident showing the seriousness of BESS risk in the United States occurred in the 2019 Arizona Public Service Grid Utility BESS facility in Surprise, Arizona, during which a lithium-ion battery thermal runaway led to an explosion. 4 firefighters were hospitalized with serious injuries. The report identified 40 significant U.S. and international BESS incidents since 2012. All but 3 occurred since 2017. Available data indicates that BESS incidents are low frequency, with no identified incidents in California. Low frequency, high risk technologies, however, pose unique challenges for hazard prevention and mitigation. Chemical safety sector and fire service emphasize the importance of implementation of rigorous, effective safeguards when the hazard is high consequence, even with low frequency events. As a caveat to our incident data review, we must note that there is no central repository of accident reports that specifically identifies BESS accidents, but lack of reporting or available data does not mean lack of problems. We note that the 2 significant recent recalls of BESS that included 5 fire events were not found in any database review. A lack of reports or detailed data can make identifying BESS incidents or specific causes difficult, with examples we noted in our report. The lack of documented BESS accidents in California may be due to the fact the great majority of installations have been carried out by contractors holding a C10 electrical license. As noted above, there is no credible safety record for C46 contractors without a C10 A or B license because they have performed so few installations. Next slide. The evidence reviewed for this report suggests that serious BESS accidents are infrequent. Where there's no single repository of BESS incidents, available data show no high consequence BESS-related incidents in California. While the incidents are infrequent, the hazards are significant. It can have serious consequence. BESS falls into the category of high consequence, low frequency risk and should be evaluated with this framework in mind. As detailed in our report, both the fire service and the chemical industry recognize the significance of the risk and importance of effective safeguards. Where incident frequency is low, the impacts can be serious. The National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, for example, states that battery energy storage systems are a high-risk hazard for emergency responders. BESS risks are significant for grid utility, industrial, commercial, and residential applications. Large-scale BESS, with greater deployed energy capacity and larger quantities of flammable vent gas and materials, have the potential for very high consequence events, as we saw in the Surprise, Arizona incident. But small-scale lithium-ion BESS capacity, including residential applications, also represents a significant risk. Residential deployment of BESS is increasing dramatically in California. New code revisions in California potentially allow an aggregate BESS capacity for some residential occupancies up to 80 kilowatt hours, depending on location. A lack of incident reports, incident details, and fire impact event reconstruction limits, detailed descriptions of BESS failure modes is a weakness of the existing data. For example, of the 29 lithium-ion BESS fires identified in a South Korea government report, faulty installation is listed, but there are no precise details. Other incident descriptions list factors that could relate to faulty installations, such as electrical arcing, the 2019 Arizona explosion, or electrical fault, the 2013 Washington fire, lack further analysis. At the same time, BESS standards and manufacturers' safety documentation acknowledge the potential for BESS events such as thermal runaway and arc flash from a number of failure modes, including installation, that can threaten workers, occupancies, and emergency responders, even for smaller scale applications. Such hazards can be triggered by pre-existing electrical conditions that are ineffectively inspected, improper handling, or faulty installation. One manufacturer's installation manual for their BESS installed in residential locations warns, quote, over voltages or wrong wiring and damage, unquote, the BESS and cause, quote, deflagration, which can be extremely dangerous, unquote. Next slide. Constant revisions of BESS safety measures and codes and standards is a clear reflection of the recognition of BESS hazards and risks. Robust safety measures that require significant technical capacity and knowledge are critical to mitigating the risks of battery energy storage systems. BESS safety measures are embedded in the various safety codes, which are continually revised to address evolving technologies and risks. The two most relevant are the NFPA and ICC codes, which are developed by panels of subject matter experts who understand BESS hazards, risks, and necessary safeguards. Minimum safety requirements that are established in these codes apply to applications from grid utility to residential and recognize that BESS in all applications, even in capacities as low as 1 kilowatt hour, have significant risks and need mitigation. The most recent consensus safety code revisions applicable to BESS have implemented even more rigorous requirements to protect the public and emergency responders. These changes include relatively low kilowatt hour thresholds for code coverage, significantly more safety provisions, and the requirement that the design and installation of BESS be performed by, quote, qualified persons, unquote, a definition that points unambiguously to the need for electrical training. The serious hazards of thermal runaway events has been a driver of changes to codes, standards, and industry safety guidelines. One of the most important and recent energy safety system codes addresses the hazards and importance of safe installation. NFPA 855, the standard for the installation of stationary energy storage systems, stated purpose is to provide, quote, the minimum requirements for mitigating the hazards associated with energy storage systems, unquote. There is no specific threshold by size or customer class under which serious safety concerns are absent. Widely accepted safety standards, such as the International Fire Code 2021, the National Fire Protection Association 70, 2020, 70E that addresses safe electrical safety 2021, and 855 that we just mentioned provide an expert, well-researched, and protective threshold for activation of BESS minimum safety requirements. In the latest codes addressing BESS, safety requirements are triggered at threshold as low as 1 kilowatt hour. For example, the latest NFPA version of NFPA 70, National Electric Code, issued in 2020, the California Electric Code 2021 supplement for R3 and R4 residential occupancies, and NFPA 855 for 1 and 2 family dwellings all have thresholds for important BESS safety requirements as low as 1 kilowatt hour capacity. These codes state that their provisions are based upon minimum requirements to mitigate hazards, and the best provisions are needed above this threshold. As the applicable codes and standards illustrate, there is no justifiable threshold by size or sector to suggest less hazardous or an insignificant risk to apply to BESS installation. There is therefore no basis for distinguishing BESS contractor jurisdiction based upon size or type of application. Serious safety issues that receive significant revisions from one code cycle to the next can lead to some confusion as to what requirements are applicable, when, and what the impact may be. For example, a question has been raised concerning the impact of the application of the UL 9540, the 2018 residential code, and what its impact will be in California. The history note for the 2019 California residential code describes the adoption of the 2018 ICC residential code with amendments with an effective date of January 1st, 2020. Our report discusses the significantly revised requirements of the subsequent 2020 version of UL 9540, including requirements related to BESS size, separation, and those incorporated from NFPA 855 and the International Fire Code that can require thermal runaway testing under another UL standard, 9540A, under certain listed conditions. These new requirements were not in the version of UL 9540 adopted into the 2018 California Residential Code. Moreover, code adoptions require time for effective adoption and typically are not applied retroactively. For example, the 2019 California Residential Code, effective January 2020, states that the code adoptions are applicable at the time of the application for a building permit when it is submitted. Continuous code revisions addressing BESS and non-retroactivity make hasty evaluations of code impact problematic. The continual nature of these code revisions also underscores the importance of a skilled and experienced workforce with demonstrated technical competence. Next slide. Manufacturer's safety guidance emphasizes the importance of broad knowledge of electrical codes by the installer, particularly NFPA 70, the requirements of NFPA 70E. The installer is warned that over voltages or wrong wiring can lead to an explosion in industry guidance. The competence of the installer is linked to worker and public safety by the manufacturer's own safety documentation. Guidance emphasizes the installation must be conducted by a competent electrician or qualified electrician or installer with specific electrical knowledge, skills, and training. The Tesla installation guidance states that for a Powerwall 2 battery energy storage system, quote, installation should be performed by a certified electrician, unquote. Rapidly developing best technologies and codes and standards that perpetually undergo revision and response require detailed knowledge of multiple hazards and evolving safety requirements. A broad knowledge of NFPA 70 and 70E in conformance with multiple sections of 70 are needed to install BESS. These are listed in existing battery energy storage system checklists for building codes and officials and are generally required in the BESS product installation manuals such as those for the Tesla Powerwall and LG Resu. The safety documentation for both the Tesla Powerwall and LG Resu recognize the serious hazards associated with thermal runaway for their residential use lithium-ion batteries. The Tesla Powerwall 2 has a 90-page installation manual with numerous steps
Wait, let me put you on speaker.
with serious safety
There
warnings.
you are. I said, let me put you on speaker. I was listening to the
Knowledge of codes
presentation.
and standards.
Hi.
System, there's a function that says raise your hand to speak. And all they...
Moderator, we could hear you over the presentation.
It was actually somebody in our attendee list. I found them and muted them.